Welcome. Today we're going to cover parts of your instrument, proper posture, and our first two open strings so that you'll have everything you need to know to begin to play the violin, viola, or cello. Let's start with the parts of our instrument. At the very top of our instrument is the scroll, which is attached to the peg box. The tuning pegs are attached to the peg box and are used to keep the strings tight. Strings are the metal parts that vibrate and create the sound on our instrument. We don't want to mess with the pegs unless you really know what you're doing, because if you turn them too far, you can break a string. Below the peg box is the nut, a small piece of wood that holds the strings up over the next part we're going to talk about, which is the fingerboard. That's the board that you put your fingers on. Somebody didn't try too hard when naming that piece. Below the fingerboard is the bridge. This is a piece of wood that also helps keep the strings up over the top of the fingerboard, just like the nut. It is held down by tension and is not glued, so it is possible for it to pop out, but it's pretty unlikely. If this does happen to you, please don't try to put it back on your own. You can damage your instrument if you don't know what you're doing. Ask Mr. M or take it to a music store for assistance. The sides of the bridge are two holes that are shaped like the letter F. Another person who is not incredibly creative decided to call these F-holes. This is where the sound comes out of your instrument after being amplified by the body of your instrument. Below the bridge and the F-holes is the tailpiece. Attached to it are some fine tuners which can be used to change the pitch of your string and are used to tune. For now, don't mess with these, as if you turn them too far you can break a string, and we want to be careful not to do that. We'll learn how to tune in a later video. If you play violin or viola, you will also have a chin rest, but contrary to its name, you don't actually put your chin on there. It's more like a jaw catcher than a chin rest. We'll see how that works a little bit later in this video. If you play the cello, you won't have a chin rest, but instead will have an end pin, which is used to keep the cello at the correct height for you to play. Be careful with these, as they're very sharp and can damage the floor or your foot if you're not careful. It's best to use a rock stop or something to help keep your instrument from sliding around and protect your floors. When we play the violin or viola, you will have the option to stand, but when playing the cello, you will almost always be seated. For orchestra, we will all be sitting, as that is standard practice. When sitting on a chair, we want to scooch all the way to the edge and keep your feet right below your knees so you can sit up straight. If you're playing violin or viola and are not playing at the time, we're going to tuck our instrument under our arm with the bridge facing away from your body. We call this rest position. To put our instrument in playing position, we will move it over to our shoulder so that our instrument comes out from our neck at about a 45-degree angle. It should not be right in front of your face, a mistake that many rookies make. For more information, you can check out page 3 in your Essential Elements book. When playing the cello, the first thing you'll need to do is adjust the end pin so that when you're standing, the scroll is about the same height as your nose. Once you have that adjusted, sit down at the edge of your chair with your feet about a hip's distance apart and hold your instrument straight in front of you. Allow the instrument to come towards your body, with the scroll coming over to your left side. The lower peg should be about the same height as your ear. For more information, you can look at page 3 of your Essential Elements book. Finally, we need to find our first two open strings, D and A. If you play the violin, these two strings are located in the middle of your instrument, the D being on the left and the A being on the right when looking down the fingerboard from playing position. If you play viola or cello, the D and A strings are the two thinnest strings. If you play viola, that means your D will be on the left side and your A will be on the right looking down the fingerboard from playing position. If you play cello, your notes are both going to be a little bit lower, but they will be located a little bit differently than the violins and violas. Looking down your fingerboard, the A string will be on the left and the D string on the right. To pluck our strings, we're going to use our index finger on our right hand. You will want to pluck part way down the fingerboard to get the best possible sound. If you go too close to the bridge, it's difficult to get the string to produce a tone, and it will probably sound harsh if you do get it to produce a tone. Now that you know how to have proper posture and find your first 2 open strings, you're able to practice playing your D and A while plucking. This foundation is very important to good instrument playing, and it will serve you well, so make sure you practice until you can get your instrument in the proper spot and locate those 2 strings with ease. Happy practicing!